up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Emerson Latzia hanging out in the DraftKings studio in Boston. We got a great show for everybody. As always, download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the DraftKings Network. Catch the best of GoJo and Golic noon to 1 p.m. Eastern on the radio wherever you hear Beeson on the radio. Basin. Anyway, we got a banger up for you guys today. That's why I'm so excited. I can't keep my words straight here. Emerson, save me from myself. Tell the people what we've got coming up.
Oh, you don't want to lean on me for saving you, buddy. All right, so some big stories this morning we will get to. How about Jared Goff getting paid? Let's go. We'll talk about that, what it means. They're locking up their quarterback, the ripple effect of this new contract, like what it means for our Lord and Savior, Trevor Lawrence. Bobby Marks of ESPN in hour two. We're talking the draft. Bronny. How about Kevin Durant's future? Reportedly unhappy in Phoenix. Color me shocked. And Tuesday Night Fever, Caitlin Clark's much-anticipated WNBA debut. And Gojo, she looked pretty comfortable on Indiana's first chartered flight. Yay, but first things first. What do you say we get weird? Let's get wild. Gojo, if you would be so kind as to introduce our special guest for hour one.
Yes, it's a special day always when we get to kick off the show with one of our great friends. You guys know her as the co-host of Oddball with Amin Al Hassan here on DraftKings Network every day but Monday. She is Charlotte Wilder, and she is here for a Wilder Wednesday on Tuesday.
She is Charlotte Wilder, and here she is. Guys, I'm so happy to be with you. I love starting the show with you. I love ending the show with you. Anytime I get to be on, it's just, I don't take it for granted. I want you to know that.
Wow, how nice is that?
What? Listen,
it's true.
As we're in,
nice
we're in draft
lady.
combine season. It's a great reminder that Charlotte Wilder has all the tools right now to make it and excel at the next level. You can put her at any spot here. Fluid, positionless basketball with Charlotte Wilder. No matter the day, no matter the hour, she's ready to go and pull and shoot from three, which is very helpful for us this morning because in addition to all that stuff that Emerson mentioned, we also had basketball games last night that I'm sure you guys are going to be fired up to talk about on Oddball. I know you're going to be joining our friends over on the Dan Le Batard show later, Charlotte, and we'll get to the Boston Celtics, who are obviously your favorite team and are cruising right now towards another series win and look like they're going to be heading to an Eastern Conference final and a lot of good stuff, even though it doesn't quite feel that celebratory. But we got to talk about this Mavs collapse last night. Dad
Big
calls
time.
his shot as the Oklahoma City Thunder get back and even this series up at 2 apiece. And guys, I was amazed watching this game. We know Luka Doncic is normally someone who lets his opinion be felt to referees, is someone that's one to complain about a call here and there. But last night, it felt like we reached our peak of Luka Doncic, I think, conversing with the referees more than he talked to anyone on his team the entire night. And that effort and that energy led to Luka Doncic, who was playing beat up, having an off night, especially towards the end of this game, and really a team, Charlotte, I think, looking lost in a lot of critical moments down the stretch, taking their energy and taking their cues from the leaders on their team, one of whom in Luka, who was busy there griping over every call, and the other in Kyrie Irving, who is back in his seesaw disappearing act in this series. So how much did last night worry you in terms of your thought of Dallas's ability to win this series?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I always had the Thunder in 6. Like, I always thought that, which I'm very relieved is still mathematically possible, because a lot of my other predictions have just really quickly fallen apart. I think, yes, Dallas's collapse is a big part of it. Also, obviously, I want to give so much credit to Oklahoma City and to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and what he did in that fourth quarter. But in terms of Dallas, there is a sometimes lack of cohesion that I think you see on the court, which I think Luka talking to the refs is a perfect example of. I mean, at one point he thought he got fouled. I don't think he did. He was on the ground. He gets up, he sort of taps both of his thighs and then both of his arms, like he was doing some sort of Russian dance or like Eastern European. I mean, I guess that makes sense. He's Eastern European, but like there was a movement to it that I was like, he's either, you know how I said it was like LeBron had a Rumpelstiltskin tantrum a few weeks ago? Like Luka had one, and then the rest of the team, like I think that can be very, very deflating. But more so than that, like if you can't finish down in the fourth quarter, like their defense for most of the game was really, really impressive, and then just like fell apart. Like in the third, I was like, oh, the Mavs are gonna win, and like, there goes another prediction that I had. Like, why do I even bother? And now I'm like, oh, am I a genius? Am I a basketball savant? But, I think that you obviously can't talk about that win without talking about the Thunder. The Mavs just, it's just weird, man. The vibes are off, I think, is my professional analysis, Gojo.
Well, yeah, Dad, the team looked exhausted down the stretch of this game. And in a game where, to Charlotte's point, defense was the hallmark of the team, the physicality inside with guys like Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, who looked and went in and seemed to be bullying Chet Holmgren and this thinner interior for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And while they were dealing with that and throwing their big punches early and waning late, Charlotte's right. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was a steady heartbeat the entire time. That guy, I mean, that was a tour de force of tough shot making in the mid-range that I haven't seen really. I mean, that was like Kobe Bryant-esque in terms of attacking that particular area of the court and doing it under duress the entire night. He looked every bit like an MVP of the league caliber player there, Dad.
No, he absolutely did. And they just were steady and just, kept climbing during the game. The third quarter, I think both teams want to forget with how bad the shooting was on both sides. But it was fun early watching Gafford. Gafford, just go stand by the basket. Somebody's going to pass you the ball or I'll alley-oop you. It was something to watch early on. He was just getting dunk after dunk. We'll sit there talking about Kyrie and we talk about Luka. Me personally, I get tired of the whining. I just get tired of the whining all the time. If I get tired of it, I imagine the refs get tired of it. And listen, it's not like they're perfect. They make some bad calls as well. But I really get tired of the whining. But the guy though on Dallas, PJ Washington has been fantastic, right? I mean, for that late season pickup, he's been the most consistent thing they've had in these playoffs, as Luka's grabbing a body part and hurts another body part, and Kyrie, has been up and down. He's kind of been that steady guy, but you got to give Oklahoma City credit for this one. I mean, what was it? A little over 3 minutes to go in the game was when they took the lead for the last time, and they didn't have a lead till early in the game. They were behind the whole time and just kept chipping away and making the comeback. So one of the places you can look, though, in a game that turned out to be, Oklahoma City with, Dallas was 17-0 in the playoffs when they had a double-digit halftime lead. They are now 17-1 because they were up by 11 at halftime and lost this game. But one of the places you look at the loss, and you saw it late, is at the free throw line. Luke had a chance to tie it up late with 2 free throws, and he missed the first one. They were 12 of 23. 12 of 20. They missed 11 free throws, and Oklahoma City missed 1. It was a 4-point game. So we can talk about a lot of things in this, but the one thing that you have all the control over in the world, you're standing there all by yourself, Charlotte, and you get to shoot a free throw, and Dallas stunk at it last night.
I think that is a place where we're seeing a lot of fatigue across the league. I think that when guys are short of their free throws, it's like, oh my God, these people are exhausted. Like with the Knicks, it's like our pets' heads are falling off, and yet they're somehow still walking around. But I think what's really interesting, you mentioned PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, everything that Mavs team has around them. And I think it's the same with the Thunder. Like, yes, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, but the Jalen's Williams, the Lou Dorts, the people that they have who step up. And I've said the whole time, the reason that I have had faith in the Thunder despite their young age is they have a team cohesion that I think we rarely see at any age group, at across any team in the NBA. I think that we've seen that, a lot of the teams that are succeeding right now have had that kind of chemistry. And that's really exciting to me because, I feel like I always try to, I just love the psychological and sort of environmental component of sports and how that affects individuals and what they're trying to do. And I think that when you have a leader like Shai who can just like make those beautiful floaters, who really feels, he plays with a kind of grace that I don't know that I've seen in the same way he's done it in a long time. It makes it easy to support him, but you have to do it. And that's what the Thunder did. And that's what the Mavs couldn't do, even though that I think they've been a much more of a team, playing team basketball much more than they had been, which is why they're the series is even. It's not over, Gojo.
Right.
Yeah, no, and that's why a lot of people look and say the Mavs in retrospect won the trade deadline with the kind of moves they made to fill out a roster that Luka Doncic seems to trust. But now you're right, you get to these points when fatigue is setting in for everybody, when all of a sudden the weight of these playoff series are starting to add up and you tend to look towards leadership. And you're right, when one side's got SGA, who whenever they needed it could go and get a bucket on himself, which we know the value of that in the postseason. Guys can go and create their own shots, get to the rack, or in his case, not go down to the paint because that's where Dallas had been dominating. Decide he was going to attack in that mid-range and just hit everything, shoot the lights out of the place. And on the other side, we're at a really interesting place now where Kyrie Irving's had sort of a renaissance of people's opinion of him during this postseason because he hasn't been saying anything controversial. He's appeared to be a good teammate and playing good ball. But in this series, it's been hot and cold, and we haven't really talked about the fact that Kyrie Irving is doing his Anthony Davis impression where he plays offense once every other game and then does the disappearing act for the rest. Still a capable distributor. And then on the other side, you've got Luka Doncic, who you see, listen, deeply relatable to be that banged up and want to tell people about it. I think there's a lot of us that succumb to that every now and then where if you're hurting, you want people to know. And Luka was clearly showing that he was hurting last night. But this is a guy that is still supposed to be the leader of this team or one of the leaders of this team and the MVP of the league that you're able to count on. And when all of a sudden, they spent, I don't know how long in pregame warmup doing the whole thing about how God Shamgod was doing all these drills with Luka pregame to simulate the pressure that Lou Dort was going to put on him to try and frustrate him. And then as the game went on, Lou Dort was still very much able to frustrate Luka Doncic to the point where he was off his game, Charlotte.
I was losing it. First of all, God Shamgod helping Luka Doncic figure out how to deal with Lou Dort. That's the name Olympics. Like, it doesn't get better than, like, that's the good stuff, guys. That's why we love sports. Yeah, it didn't work. You can rattle Luka very easily. You can get under his skin.
Yeah.
And I think that it's interesting the amount that he does want us to know that he's hurt, because then on the other hand, and look, these are sort of two sides of the same PR strategy, right? Like, because if you look at Jalen Brunson for the Knicks, who's asked in press conferences, are you hurt? Are you tired? How are you feeling? He just says, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, in a way that makes one think that maybe one might not be so fine. I do think, though, that there is, what I've admired about Jalen Brunson is the way he's been able to say, like, it doesn't matter, like that
Right.
I can be hurt. That's not the story. However, we talked about an oddball. Amin was saying, like, if that's the case, and if that's the road that you're going to take, then, like, don't tell me in 2 weeks just how hurt you were, which I think also is definitely more of can often be like a team PR thing. I think that if Jalen really doesn't want people to know, they won't. But stuff gets out. Like,
but like hockey players do that every postseason. That's one of the things that we love about the Stanley Cup playoffs, is that 2 weeks later we get to hear about these guys were playing with like severed femoral arteries or a broken shin bone.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I mean, but I love the Jalen Brunson approach now. You go on the court, it doesn't matter how injured you are. You're on the court, so you're going to play. Again, this may be the old school coming out in me, but I think it should apply here now. You're on the court. Don't want to hear it. Even if I'm your teammate, I don't want to hear you telling me how hurt you are, or you telling everybody, I know you're hurt. There ain't one person on that court that's 100%. And Luka is certainly beat up. I give you that without credit. But at some point, you don't want to hear it. You're out there playing, you just play.
Yeah, I think, too, it depends who's telling you how hurt they are. I think Luka is someone who does not, maybe we don't give him the benefit of the doubt in terms of, like, how does he mean this to come across? Because it feels like when you say how hurt you are, when you complain to the refs, that verges into excuse territory to me. And all of it's true. Like, it's all true, but everybody out there on the court has some sort of issue going on. And I can imagine that if you're his teammate, it gets a little grating to be like, oh, I'm sorry, you're hurt. Like, and that it just gets sort of boring. So it's very interesting to see how that plays out in terms of wins and losses, where it's like the Thunder also talk about youth. Like, this is where being 22 years old is really nice, because your body can bounce back in ways that even at 25, 26, it just can't. And the Thunder, I mean, let alone your 30s, God, don't talk to me. My back, I'm like, need a back transplant. But there is this element of, like, it happens very quickly. You don't feel pain when you're young, and the Thunder are young.
No, they're definitely dealing with that. And Charlotte, I'm with you on the complaints thing with Luka. We know he does this. This is a part of his game, and you kind of go numb to it. But last night, the way I thought about it is it became his entire personality last night, to the point where it was affecting possessions. It was affecting the flow of the game. It had a tangible impact on the way the rest of that team was playing, and that's where it can't broach into. But that's a product of fatigue, frustration, injury, all those things adding up, Dad.
So a couple things I noticed. I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. First, Lou Dort, I thought that was good. He got a couple early fouls, and I thought, that's going to be trouble if he can't be as aggressive on the defensive side. But he still managed to shot horribly, though hit a couple of big shots in this one. I thought Luka got an absolute gift going to the line at the end of the game when he fell down. I don't think he got hit at all. What were your thoughts, Charlotte? Let me start with you about the complaint that Jalen Williams traveled or double dribbled on the dunk he got that put him up 94-91. It was a 1-point game. He got control of the ball and then dribbled. I was even watching go, wait a minute. But the chief, the crew chief, Zach Zarba, did say he didn't have control of the ball and then dribbled again. But obviously Dallas was going nuts over that one.
I mean, I think any team in these playoffs, Rick Carlisle the Pacers submitted 79 different plays that they thought could have gone their way and didn't. I think anytime in the playoffs when you start adjudicating every single call, it's like, yes, that might have been a call that could have shifted things, but also I'm sure there was a call earlier for that went in Dallas's favor that could have shifted things. I think I you kind of lose me when it comes down to, unless there's something so egregious. I think, like, I mean, in the Celtics game, it was very interesting that the Jaylen Brown ankle grab was not a technical foul, things like that, which I could even admit as a Celtics fan. But those smaller things, I'm like, I mean, it's hard for me, especially when your star player is literally down at the other end of the court complaining to the refs and is not down doing what he should be, to be like, yeah, that's the, that's the thing that swung it. I don't know, Gojo. Maybe it's tough, right? Like,
I was gonna say it's a little ticky tack for me, even in that moment, especially when, like Charlotte said, you've had the opportunity to win this game if you're even semi-competent from the free throw line. Your best player is at the free throw line with 10 seconds left with a chance to tie this thing and just gives it away there. And then you've got a player late who can't make free throws when he needs to and can't miss them when he needs to try and tie that up when they're down 3 in the waning seconds of that game. So Dallas had plenty of opportunities. I think officiating overall was kind of weird in this game. They let an odd amount of physicality go, but they still managed to find ways to get a couple of guys like that into foul trouble. Bottom line is, now we've got the young team that's been very steady that goes back home with this season series even at 2 apiece. And I would have thought Dallas, I picked them to win last night. I thought they were getting ready to shut the door. But looking forward and prognosticating here with the level of fatigue we've seen from this Dallas Mavericks team and the way they've been ultra ego, hot and cold versus the ultra instinct of SGA and this Oklahoma City team, the Thunder seem to be in great position as they head back home. But coming up next, got to talk about the other game that we saw last night. The Boston Celtics go up 3-1 in their series against the Cleveland Cavaliers as they head back home with a chance to close the door. So why doesn't it feel like that for anybody involved with this Boston Celtics team? And LeBron James sitting courtside in Cleveland. Something, nothing, or everything. Next on GoJo and Golic.
Big night for Boston's dynamic duo here, people. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown combining for 60 points in a Game 4 victory over the Donovan Mitchell-less Cavs. Now, after the game, both players praising the effort of their opponent.
Give credit to Cleveland. They came out with great energy. They play fast. They play hard. They tried to speed us up. They tried to rattle us, and I think it worked in the first half. And in the second half, we composed ourselves a little bit better and pulled away a little bit.
When best player goes out, everybody has more freedom, more opportunity, and we knew it wasn't going to be easy. It's the playoffs. They don't want to go home, and give them credit. They play hard from beginning to end. They made plays on both ends. They hit big shots. So it was a battle, and it was fun out there.
Yeah, when those two have their offense going, Celtics are extremely difficult to beat, GoJo, and that's even more true this season with their improved supporting cast.
Yeah, the Celtics winning this game wasn't surprising, especially given the headline pregame that Donovan Mitchell wasn't going to be playing and be available for them. We all figured that would come. But Charlotte, how worried were you? It definitely seemed a bit tougher to come by than most people would expect it. Are you buying what Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are selling in terms of reasons why, or are you panicking?
So I'm not panicking, but I do have a problem with how Jason Tatum has talked about this series, these playoffs. First, he said a few days ago, he was asked if the Celtics are a super team, and he said, well, no, we don't have coach of the year. We only had 2 all-stars. And I'm like, okay, first of all, if you are basing your self-worth and judging yourself by the awards other people have given you, you probably work in entertainment in media, and you're like very sad. Like, don't do that, Jaylen. Like, you're better than that. And then he comes out and he's like, their best player was gone, so everybody has more freedom. Like, spinning that somehow as if that is a reason that the Cavs were more dangerous without Donovan Mitchell, which is just not how it works. Donovan Mitchell has been the Cavs offense. And I think it's a testament to the Cavs. I would say that this was an unbelievable performance by them in a way that it didn't feel like a Celtics collapse. So to me, when the Cavs went up in the second half, took their first lead of the game, I was like, this to me is the real test of this Celtics team right here. Because I think the Celtics team that we have seen these playoffs against the Heat and against the Cavs in those 2 blowout games that they've lost is like, things get hard. They get frustrated. They don't keep fighting in the way of offensive rebounds or playing defense as hard as they could. Tatum did that much better this game. I think Brown did too. I think Drew Holiday was unbelievable this game, and they pulled it off. They won. And I think that it's healthy to have some games that are not either a blowout win or a blowout loss, because that's what good basketball is supposed to be in the playoffs. We're going to see some of that if they keep advancing.
I think, Charlotte, to your point, this is the first game that they've won in single digits. The first postseason game, period, the Celtics have had decided by single digits this postseason. Yeah. But, Dad, to Charlotte's point, and to the questions that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are constantly feeling, the expectation for this team and the reality of them right now without Kristaps Porzingis are in 2 wildly different places. And because of the regular season they've had, this has been a joyless experience for the Boston Celtics in the postseason, because unless they win by 20 plus, no one seems to be happy. And this team seems to be more relieved than anything when they get through these outings, because this core in particular knows the standard that they're being held to right now. And it's one that I don't know if anybody can live up to, but I will say they are finding themselves a very easy path through the Eastern Conference thus far, considering the teams that they have faced along the way. And now the fact that they've been without stars in the last 2 rounds.
Yep. First, I gave credit Cleveland. Garland played well. Mobley, LeVert came in and got the start, had 19 for him. And then, I talked about free throws in the other game. We could talk about free throws in this game. Cleveland took 17 less. Cleveland only took 7 free throws in this one, and Boston took 24. That's something Cleveland was talking about after the game. But forgetting all that, Charlotte, I'm wondering, people have such an issue with Jason Tatum and the way he handles himself and the way, whether it's on the court or behind the microphone. Will that all go away if they just win a title? Or is that
yeah.
stuck with Jason Tatum for as long as he's there?
I mean, anybody who wins a title in Boston, you become a king real fast. I think, for me, Gojo, you talked about the joylessness. Like, I cannot wrap my head around this team or what is happening. I don't know if I still just have like unresolved trauma from last year's Eastern Conference Finals where things were looking real good and then suddenly they face the Heat and things are looking real bad. I think, Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Celtics, is a real weirdo. Like, I don't know how else to put it. He is a strange dude. But to his credit, I think that he, and also, GM Brad Stevens has put together a really, really solid roster. I think Mazzulla has been very smart about how he has played his guys all year because they're not that hurt. Like, Kristaps is hurt, but you look at these other teams, and when they've had to rely on people in a way that just puts an unbelievable burden on them, and especially, like Donovan Mitchell, he's dealt with injuries this whole season, and then he's out last night. And I think that there's something to be said for how the playing time has been managed because they're all still able to be out there. And of course, that is also luck, but I don't know. I'm sort of all over the place because I'm like, why am I not having this? Did you see Party Down?
Well,
did you watch Party Down?
It's the pressure
with Adam Scott?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, his tagline is, "Are we having fun yet?" as this guy in a beer commercial. And that's sort of how I feel. I'm like, I don't know. I know, and I should be. And then I feel bad because I'm like an entitled fan who's like, oh, we're winning, but it's not the way I want them to win. And it's like, what is wrong with everybody? What is going on? This is a mini meltdown that you're witnessing.
We've talked about it a lot this postseason. It is comparison being the thief of joy. It's watching Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Oklahoma City do interviews together after the game, and it's watching palpable joy from other places. And then it's seeing what was a team during the regular season that was a blast in the Boston Celtics, but now everyone looked around and realized the stakes. It's like all of a sudden at one point, I don't know if you guys have ever had this feeling, when you're flying in a plane and you look out the window and you realize, oh, that's 30,000 feet. That is a terrifying distance to be from the ground. And for a while, you're sitting there white-knuckled wondering why you let yourself get into this situation. That kind of feels like the way the Boston Celtics are flying through this postseason right now. And I think they've all realized, especially with Kristaps out, because I think it does matter for a guy that was kind of inherently the most fun of the group and also represented this thing that was different about the team from last year to this year.
He also seemed to be happiest to be there. Like, I think when you go from the Washington Wizards, having a career year with the Washington Wizards, to being loved in Boston with, title or it's a failure, that's a really good feeling. I think when you're Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and you're like, oh God, we've been here for 7 years now trying to just like slog through this, and we keep getting stuck. And also Drew Holiday. I think that the guys who came in this year, there's been like this is sort of fun. This is sort of cool. Like the TD Garden loves when we're here. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I think, are a little broken because Boston will do that to you.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Dad.
No, I was going to say, and they have, look at the chance they have, get out of this series and play either an unbelievably destroyed, beat up New York Knicks team or a really good, very good Pacers team who certainly has a lot more depth than the Knicks. But it's not like it's murderer's row.
No, it isn't. But if somehow this Knicks team squeaked out, they would not win that series against Boston, but they would absolutely make a few guys on that team cry. I have no doubt in my mind that they would break them in a very different way in a limited amount of time in that series, as they were likely gentlemen swept by a team that seems like they are destined to make it to the NBA Finals. And then from that point on, unless Kristaps Porzingis comes back and gives them that extra edge, I still have real questions about what happens with whoever comes from the West. All right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Charlotte Wilder, and Emerson Lazio. Before we get to opening night in the WNBA, where the story has apparently become more of how we're getting there than anything else out the gate, Charlotte, one part of the Boston Celtics and Cleveland Cavaliers game we didn't get to last night was who was courtside. Now, I want to preface this by saying NBA players who are out of the playoffs attending other playoff games is not something abnormal. We saw later in the late game between Dallas and the Oklahoma City Thunder, Tyrese Maxey was at that game watching underneath the basket. These guys have time. They love basketball. This is what happens. But LeBron James, his wife Savannah, and Rich Paul, the CEO of Clutch Sports, sitting courtside at a Cleveland Cavaliers game where LeBron is obviously from, where Rich Paul and Savannah and them are obviously all from, but where LeBron had a storied playing career, as he is potentially testing the waters of moving teams after this season with Los Angeles, while his son is in the draft lottery right now. Charlotte, is this something we should read into? Is this a LeBron James cry for attention? Where were you at on the scale of LeBron James media masterminding last night?
I mean, I don't know. I don't ever know what he's doing. He's always like, I mean, I do. Like sometimes it's way too obvious what he's doing. But the weirdest thing about this for me is that I was watching this and he's courtside, and it felt like a retired player who comes back and is hailed as the hero, and the crowd goes, "What? He plays for the Lakers." Like he's on a whole different ass NBA team right now, everybody. And they are just like, obviously this is different because it's LeBron. He's played for a bajillion years. He'll be going into his 22nd season. I don't know. I guess I just have a hard time seeing him leaving LA and the Lakers. They take care of their own there. I think that, it's come out that they would be probably happy to draft Bronny and basically give LeBron whatever he wants. So it felt a little bit like, here I am. Did you miss me? It felt maybe LeBron needed a bit of an ego boost of like a bunch of people cheering for him in the playoffs and remembering when that happened in Cleveland. But I also think he just wanted to go to a game. Like I think with LeBron, it is so, because he does this so often and, like tweets hourglass emojis, it's hard to take anything at face value. My favorite part of it was that he had a bottle of wine and a coffee cup under his chair as though he's me going to the movies, which I appreciated. So I don't know what he's trying to say, Senior, but he definitely something. Because
who doesn't try and sneak in some booze to wherever they're going, right? But tough to do that in a 20,000 seat arena. And I heard it was like a $500 bottle of wine, which certainly he can afford. A bottle of wine, a coffee cup, and a bottle of water is what he had going on there.
Two waters.
Good for him. I mean, listen, I took a couple of waters. Well, you got to stay hydrated. I have no idea why it was there. I no clue. And does he like the adulation? I do think he likes the headlines and likes being the star, which he is, by the way. But I'm. You know what? That's for a lot of other people to try and dive into why he's there. I'm just interested to see what goes on now that his son Bronny is in Chicago at the NBA Combine, basically, where he looked good shooting threes the other day, even though he's basically 3 inches shorter than what he was listed in the USC program. And they go through 5-on-5 scrimmages I think today. And to see where that goes, to see where these two end up, because that's the one thing, Mike, I have no doubt about, that if he stays in the draft, because he still has the escape to go back to college if he wants, but if he stays, that he and his dad are going to end up on the same team somewhere.
GoJo, is he a bad Cavs fan, though? Talking LeBron, he did not wear the shirt provided for Cavs fans, and then he left early as they were getting set to lose.
You know what? He's not a bad Cavs fan as much as he is. Like, this move to me reeked of management. This is someone who's talked openly about wanting to own a team who exists in a largely different space than his peers, especially at this age. And this kind of felt like a reminder of it. Like, even seeing Tyrese Maxey later, it felt different, where Tyrese is sitting under the basket and not really drawing a lot of attention to himself, versus LeBron James. It was very much in a spot that made sure he was the center of attention like he is used to. And that reeked of, I am in a different tier than everybody else here.
Yes, he definitely courtside, but I do like he was sitting off to the side. He was sitting near one of the baskets, which I took as his attempt to be like, oh, but I'm here, but I'm not really here. Like which is the most LeBron thing.
Big story.
Sit with the people up top. Come on, be a man of the people.
And I think this is one of those. This is one of those things where, with the background of Bronny potentially coming out of the draft right now, I think everything is kind of calculated with this guy. I think going a week without being the subject of conversation is not something that he's used to at this point. But also, it's this idea that with Bronny's future not being as certain because Bronny's not as good of a player, he's not a guy that's going to be a lottery pick that's going to be in high demand. I think everything's kind of got to be on the table for them right now. That's why Rich Paul being right there sort of made me chuckle, because this felt like the brain trust that's kind of out here keeping all their options on the table. And so we'll wait and see what happens with that. Shout out to LeBron with the 3-drink minimum. It appeared there. I want to know if that was a red. It was Opus, so it was, like you said, a $500 bottle of wine. But red with white pants, really bold man. That's why he's one of the all-time greats and why I am a complete schlep. Speaking of all-time greats, guys, we got the WNBA season kickstarting with, I think, as much fanfare and excitement as there's been in my lifetime for the beginning of the season with the W, and so much of that points to the debut of Caitlin Clark, which, as we try and contextualize this, coming off a year where we had Victor Wembanyama's very heralded debut in the NBA as one of the marquee prospects, the biggest since LeBron James. On the NBA side, Charlotte, this feels to me a lot like Zion coming out of Duke, where we had a college player that was a singular phenomenon in the sport that drew so much energy and took so much air just with her presence, now getting ready to make a debut for a sold-out game against the Connecticut Sun, one that's going to be incredibly well-watched. Their preseason's been incredibly well-watched. So how do you think this affects the trajectory of this WNBA season to have a player like this as the entry point now?
I mean, you just have to look at the Fever games. Like the Sun, they're playing at the Sun tonight. The Sun sold out the arena for the first time since they started as a team in 2003. I think, 36 of the 42 games that Fever play are on national television. Yep. You can watch this game everywhere. You can watch it on Disney Plus. I think that the business side of it shows what a massive moment this is. I think from talking about Caitlin and her game, what's so interesting to me is the Fever coach, Christy Sides, said, we're trying to break some habits here. She was like, we need her to take those long twos. Like, she's used to dancing around the 3-point line and backing up and getting one. And she said, I gave her a rule, which is that, like, she has 0.5 seconds to make a decision. And if there's a teammate coming off the ball, she's got to get it to them. And she'll get the ball back. She was like, she's going to get looks. I think that this is a hangover sort of from Caitlin not having, she had a great team at Iowa, but she wasn't surrounded by, 4 other future pros. Although shout out Kate Martin and the Las Vegas Aces. So I think from a basketball standpoint, I am fascinated to see what happens here, especially because I think every other pro in the WNBA is going to be like, oh, hey, Caitlin, you thought? And that's going to be really fun. So I think that storyline, regardless of how she's playing, that's going to propel so much viewership through the whole year, especially because these games are going to be so visible.
And you mentioned 36 of the 42 games on national TV. It'll be interesting on how good they are. They haven't made the playoffs since 2015, 2016. They have not been a very good team. So if they stink again, those 30, 31, 32 games are going to be, with watching a bad team, but with Caitlin Clark. But they have center stage right now, going to not just Caitlin Clark, but the other stars who we have gotten to know over the last couple of years in college are now in the WNBA. They are getting more notoriety now than they ever have. They're making more money. I mean, the league is making more money than they ever have. So the spotlight is on them. And in all honesty, they need to step up a little bit. They're kind of failing with the whole charter thing a little bit. I know if I've been a player for about 5-6 years in that league and heard we're going to start taking charter flights, and all of a sudden my first few trips are still commercial, I'm going to be bummed out. They got to get their ducks in the row behind the scenes here as we're getting to watch, hopefully, an incredible WNBA season.
Yeah, there had been a lot of positive momentum. You had the Asia Wilson shoe announcement. You had the Skims campaign that went live yesterday. To Charlotte's point, a lot of visibility, a lot of good vibes. And then some of that air taken out of those sails when all of a sudden you botched the rollout for this fun new thing that you had teased. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. The news is flying across the timeline this morning of fun things across various leagues. We were just talking about the WNBA having its season debut tonight, and we get the announcement that the Golden State, we've had WNBA expansion. We're getting a team owned by the Golden State Warriors and also a team in Toronto. The Golden State team is the Golden State Valkyries, which, badass name. Love that one. As someone that is currently playing God of War and actually getting ready to fight Sigrun right now at the end of this game, I've spent a lot of time warring with Valkyries, and they are incredibly tough. And so, great tone to set right off the bat. Charlotte, you're a big fan of this name for a very different reason, I guess.
Oh, I'm why'd you have to say that? I just know that it's also from
Nerd alert.
It's also from a Wagner opera, The Ring Cycle, really creepy opera, like a lot of Norse stuff, little bit of white people stuff, a little bit of incest, but what are you going to do?
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. That took a turn.
Game of Thronesy here. All right.
You
We're
have
going to
my
back away
attention.
from that one slowly. The nerd stuff always kind
Google
of
it. I don't
verges
know.
on the
Google
smut
it.
a little
I'm on a
bit.
work computer.
I was going to say, it's exactly right. I looked up Valkyrie. To me, it's chooser of the slain, and they carried the Norse warriors, the Valkyries did, to Valhalla. I mean, that's cool as hell. Maybe not as cool as what you're talking about, Charlotte, which
No, it's not cool.
I have no idea
but
what you're talking about.
No.
I
don't
Googled
really
it,
either. I never know what I'm talking about. Let's just make sure that everybody knows that. I never know what I'm talking about, but I do it a lot. I talk
see
a lot.
Tom Cruise in an eye patch from a movie in 2008. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
So there's a lot going on with that, but inherently cool name, looks like purple and black for the colors. Big fan of everything involved there. I'm sorry to everyone who thinks that they should have just been the W Warriors, but we will somehow press on without that being the case. The other stuff that we've seen, Adam Schefter all morning, with some, I won't call them leaks because we know these are timed releases. We saw Fox yesterday have the conversation about their opening game, but Adam Schefter this morning releasing some of the early season ESPN games for week 1. And Dad, how about this? We get two little nuggets here. The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to host the Baltimore Ravens on opening night, that Thursday of the NFL season, are going to follow that up with a game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So back-to-back AFC North foes to start the year in a really tough one. And then the Monday Night Football opener, once again, going to feature Aaron Rodgers. It's the Jets at the 49ers on the first Monday Night Football game of the season. That same game where Aaron Rodgers, 4 plays in, ruptured his Achilles last year and changed the course of human history in the NFL, Dad. So really exciting opening slate for the NFL season. And for Aaron Rodgers, I'd have to imagine a pretty sizable mental burden to be going out into the same setting that last year completely altered your season.
Yeah, interesting. He's playing against a team he'd probably rather be on in San Francisco, being from out there, and he just wants to make it to play 5. Right? Then he knows he'll beat last season's amount of 4 plays. So, schedule, we always, I don't even know why we have the show we're having tomorrow. There's going to be shows everywhere. I'm on one for Westwood One for the schedule release. When we're getting all the stuff now, we're getting the last couple of days, we're getting all Tom Brady's first game, the Browns and the Cowboys on the 4:25 game on the first Sunday of the NFL. So, I mean, we're getting all that good stuff already. I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about for 2 hours come tomorrow.
So Schefter, by the way, is defending himself on social media. He says, by the way, these are not schedule leaks. These are coordinated network announcements. Because people are crapping on him for it.
No, 6 of one, half dozen of the other here. That's a reminder right there that Adam Schefter reading the replies, which, Adam, you're too good for that. That's dangerous.
No way,
place.
dude.
You don't be there.
Dive into it.
It's just a bunch of nudes in bio at this point. You don't click on any links in there, Adam. I understand that you've been on the internet for a long time, but this place is changing rapidly and not for the better. Speaking of nudes in bio, we finally got a response. I don't know why it has a transition at all that replies to Jason Fitz,
great
but
segue.
I feel like we do need to try and grade this while Charlotte is here. We last week got swept up in the trend from the Greenlight podcast. Our friends Chris Long and Macon decided to, instead of partake in some of the beef that we had seen going on between Kendrick and Drake, they wanted to go from diss tracks to kiss tracks, say kind things about their friends in the form of hip hop, although it ended up just kind of being spoken word poetry for all of us. I did a couple, including for Macon, ESPN's Mina Kimes and Jason Fitz. And since Jason was, and I think still technically is, a professional songwriter, as someone whose life was in music before this, the pressure was on Jason, much like the Boston Celtics. I don't know how much joy there was going to be in this because we had put the bar at such a high place. But Emerson, it seems like he might have had a chance to actually clear this.
Yeah. So first off, you had a nice little tribute to Jason Fitz. So you've already mentioned it. Your boy Macon here of the Greenlight Podcast dropped a kiss track for GoJo and Golic and decided to respond to Macon as well as pay it forward to Jason Fitz. So here we go.
Gotta set the mood first, Mike. Boom, ka, boom, boom, ka. Mike, boom, ka, boom, boom. His name is GoJo. You wish you knew him like I did. Wish he was hanging with you like he does at my crib. Loves his Reese's and his Pieces. He's the king of snacks. Cancels every phone call and meeting for that. Yeah, mascots envy all the shine on his head, cause he is even sexier than Right Said Fred. Look it up, kids. It's a song from the 90s. Mike just won't remember it cause then he was tiny, but he's old enough to have played for a natty. And build an empire. Not because of Zaddy, cause he's thick with 2 C's in every badass way. Throwing DraftKings takes both night and day. Making bacon makes him shake him. Ladies lining up to date and never hesitating, waiting, faking, never any BS taking. Eat a whole steak in 3 bites max, cause he laughs like Santa. He's way less fat. The Yargo show their love with a head that bobbles. Every wedding party's better when he wobbles. G to the O to the J to the O. You wish that you could get to know a bro that makes you spit some flow, cause everybody needs to have a bro like GoJo.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
Nice kiss track there by Fitz.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, what-
that is the coolest thing anyone's ever done for anyone.
What? I mean, what can you say? I mean, dude's a professional, right? So you expect something good, but that was damn impressive. Yeah, wow.
He is the first one who in this entire ordeal has actually rapped to like something resembling a steady beat. Now, there was some criticism internally here from our show staff, Cough Billy, that he changed up the flow in a way that might not have needed to happen. I kind of disagree. I thought that was an incredible flex for a guy that seemed to understand the assignment better than any of the rest of us the entire time. So, this reeked of a pro in doing this. Charlotte, I'm sorry we didn't write one for you. I hope you don't feel offended. Is this something that you would be into at all? I know you are a writer, so this is closer to your ballpark than it is to mine.
I was going to say, thanks for my kiss track, everybody. Really feeling the love. Yes, of course. Are you kidding me? You know what? I'll work on one for you guys and I will debut it next week. It might be more along the lines of spoken poetry because I think that's where my ceiling is, but I'm going to do my best, and I can't wait to show you what I come up with. Now I'm terrified. What have I done?
I'm excited about yours, Charlotte. Dad, I was really worried when the beatboxing started with Fitz. That was a really inauspicious start to this.
Listen, he killed it, but I gotta ask, is he like the Jason Tatum of this? Because of all the people that threw out the kiss tracks, right, from Greenlight and you and then him, his had to be the best because he's a professional, right? He's a pro, so the expectation is that he's going to have the best, which he did, by the way. That was the best one. But does he feel relief or joy, right? If the Celtics win it all, is there going to be relief or actual joy in knowing that you were supposed to do that anyway?
I think the word is satisfaction. I think it's a deep satisfaction. It's like, I knew I could do this. You all thought maybe the pressure would get to me. It didn't. Here's my beautiful kiss track. You're welcome.
I think that is. I think that's satisfaction because I know in texting with him, it was weighing on Jason pretty heavily. The burden of that, he even said last week, it's going to take me longer because people expect more out of me. But you're right, Charlotte, the perfect reframe for Jason Fitz and for the Boston Celtics, maybe. Satisfaction. Let it be your totem going forward in the postseason. Charlotte Wilder, everyone check her out on Oddball with her and Amin El-Hassan. She'll be on the Levitard show as well later today. Thanks, buddy. We appreciate you.
Always a pleasure. Love you guys.
Hell yeah, brother. Jared Goff earning his spot as Detroit's franchise quarterback, and the Lions rewarding him for such efforts here, guys. Signing him to a 4-year, $212 million contract extension. It includes $170 million guaranteed, making the 2016 number 1 pick the highest paid player in franchise history. An average annual salary here, Gojo, of $53 million. He's now the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL, behind only Joe Burrow. So Goff, big winner in this whole thing, is he not?
Yeah, Dad, this, not a quarterback whose name we had talked about a lot this offseason in terms of someone eligible for an extension. Most of that conversation had centered around quarterbacks we'll certainly get to in Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, maybe even Emerson's beloved Trevor Lawrence and what his future looks like in Jacksonville, because we know all these things are intertwined. But when I look at the situation with Jared Goff, this seems like the only outcome that Detroit really had based on what had gone on for this team the last 2 years, and more importantly, I think where they had come from in this. You were a team that in Dan Campbell's tenure had pulled yourself out of hell as a franchise. Detroit, historically, one of the NFL laughingstock teams, a team that had always struggled to come by wins, gets 2 playoff wins after a massive drought this last season as the culmination of this steady climb that Jared Goff had been a part of. And without any steady replacement on the horizon here, I know they drafted Hendon Hooker. I understand he's had time to cook on that roster, but you're in a win-now mode with the way that you have structured this team. Your championship window is as wide open as it's ever been this season, and so they couldn't afford to mess around with this. This is a place that seems to reward loyalty, so I understand completely why this probably always had to happen.
Yeah, I agree. What were they going to do? I mean, they're building. They just, right now, including him, has spent $444 million on extensions with St. Brown at wide receiver and Sewell the tackle. So, I mean, they're building right now. They're in it right now. So why have a question mark there? And it's not like you're trying to hang on, right? Jared Goff did throw 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, threw for over, 4,500 yards, was in the top 10 of quarterback rankings. It's not like you're extending a bottom third of the league quarterback here. You're extending a guy that we saw some of the good and some of the bad over the time he's been there. We saw some of the when he was with the Rams, and then we saw him really shine at times. But if they're to finish off what they started, which is, being at the top of their division right now and making a run in the playoffs and trying to get to the Super Bowl, they don't have another choice. I'm with you. What was your plan? It wasn't going to be a young quarterback coming in. A, you're never going to pick early enough to do that. B, you don't want to trade all those assets to try and do that. So was it going to be a free agent quarterback where you're going to trade again, giving up assets, or take a guy who's been playing at times plays great and at times plays pretty good? So I'm with you. I think this was a move that had to be done to keep the continuity of this team going.
And I understand, I've heard Dan Orlovsky say before, you sometimes get in trouble in the NFL when you play good players, great player money, but quarterback kind of skews that conversation, but because we understand It's less about where you rank and more are you in range. And Jared Goff is not a top 5 quarterback, probably realistically not a top 10 quarterback if everyone is playing at the height of their powers, but he's within range enough of that upper half of the league to where when he has understanding of the offense, him and Ben Johnson have that continuity that's been built up over the last few years with all of those players you mentioned. They've re-signed or drafted to try and be a part of this push towards an NFC championship appearance, a Super Bowl appearance, hell, maybe even a win that's all seems like it's on the table realistically now for the Lions. You can't afford to really mess around all of that much here. We know these deals tend to age well pretty quickly because we mentioned there's a mountain of other quarterbacks we're getting ready to talk about here. But, Dad, this is just sort of how this position operates. Doesn't mean there's not a little bit of consternation because you're right. Jared Goff is a fine quarterback within the body of this system, right? He's a smart veteran leader, only 29 years old, which threw me off a little bit. Jared Goff feels like he's been in the league for a million years at this point because he's lived 2 lives already. But we know he's got limitations. If you want him to throw deep and outside the numbers a ton and fit into a bunch of other areas, it's not going to be it. But if you want that dude to throw play action over the middle of the field, hell, he can fit a ham through a keyhole. That's not an analogy that makes real sense, but it's just what popped into my brain because he can do anything in that particular facet. And so he's got enough skills and familiarity to where this was the comfortable choice, I think, for Detroit, given where they're at.
I got thrown on the age as well because I started thinking about Kirk Cousins, and I'm like, is he going to finish his 4-year deal in Atlanta? Well, now that they signed Penix Jr., probably not. And he's 35. I did not realize Stafford was 29. I honestly did not. For some reason, I thought he was way older than that. So, yeah, I really don't have a problem with this move because what you said in the beginning there is true. The quarterback position throws off everything you're going to do. It skews differently than every other position. You're always going to pay more than you wanted to for a quarterback. And in this situation, I think they absolutely had to do this.
I do love, and one of my favorite things about this is the Lions are a continued, very public experiment about what if you buy into all of the soft skill parts of football. Like, Dad, we talked about this a bit with the Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr. thing that you brought up. The internal effect on a locker room, what message that sends to veterans, what message it sends to Kirk Cousins when you clearly don't communicate a move like that in the lead up to the draft, versus the Lions, who every step of the way, when you listen to Dan Campbell or when you listen to their GM Brad Holmes, they always seem to prioritize the player experience. And this is another one of those things where we hear all the time, hey, when you reward players for going out in your regime and performing well the way Jared Goff has over the last 2 years, when you send the message to your locker room that we are in win now mode and we're not going to do anything to rock the boat while we're this close to the prize the way that we felt like last year, it is fascinating to me because, Dad, Dan Campbell, the former player in that chair who's built a staff full of former players and a team that seems as cohesive as any in the NFL from front office down to the 53rd guy on the roster, they seem to really believe that, yes, everything that we do is telling our players and telling our team, this is what we think about our situation and this is what we think about you guys. And so far, it's had them on a trajectory where we talk about what the Bills were able to do with Josh Allen and improving him. What Dan Campbell's been able to do improving this team with a player like Jared Goff in the middle, who is a cast off from that Rams team, continues to give credence to that style of thinking.
It truly feels like, you always talk about a trade and who won the trade. It truly feels like that trade really benefited both sides, right? The Rams got a Super Bowl out of it in Stafford going to L.A., and Detroit is rising up the ranks pretty quickly. What a difference of that first day Dan Campbell was named head coach, and he was talking about biting kneecaps and everything, where every player that was on the roster had to be sitting at home going, oh, my God, camp is going to suck. He's going to be so hard on us at camp. To, you know what Dan Campbell was selling worked. Everybody now is bought in because the wins say it all. You need guys to buy in, but when the product works, it's like what D'Amico Ryans is selling out with the Texans. It took him 1 year. What he's selling, everybody is buying. So now others want to be part of that, and you become that team that is making solid moves. You've extended Campbell. You've extended the GM already. It's like all going in that positive direction. It's kind of like what they did with San Francisco. Shanahan. And I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on the GM out there.
John Lynch.
John Lynch. How they signed them to that 6-year deal, extended them because they have everything going in the right direction. That's kind of where Detroit is now in the beginning of that phase, really going in the right direction.
They're doing things that healthy organizations do. They're keeping their core together. They're getting out in front of these contracts here. And it's why when a deal like that comes up yesterday, one of the first things a lot of us do, because we're all media trained enough and because America's team, quote unquote, has that kind of hold on everyone, where we immediately look over to the Dallas Cowboys and go, see, this is possible. And Dad, to me, this is, hey, when you feel like you know that you've got your person, the Detroit Lions, even if the rest of us on the outside don't look at Jared Goff with the same googly hard eyes as the Lions do internally, they know, and so they acted. Whereas the Dallas Cowboys, we sit here now still and immediately wonder, all right, are these enough leaves that have fallen for Jerry Jones to feel like he can go out here and make a move on the Dak Prescott contract front? Because on the other side, Dad, they just seem to be waiting until the final hour for everything as their strategy with him, with CeeDee Lamb's future, certainly Micah Parsons coming down the road, who, man, going back to watch some tape yesterday and then seeing Micah Parsons just pop up on my screen is a good reminder of how rich he's going to be. But the Dallas Cowboys seem to have always been governed by the deadlines drive results mentality, and now staring in the face of what we just talked about with those other healthy organizations seems as toxic as it's been for a while, and it's the reason why the Cowboys feel like they're sitting on a knife's edge going into this season.
Yeah, it does. You really, if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, have to be scratching your head at just what is going on with your team, because you have other quarterbacks out there that are up for new contracts this offseason. Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, all that have that obviously with a fifth-year option or can be tagged. And Dak Prescott. Dak can't be traded. Dak can't be tagged. He got that in his deal. So I like everybody else, you keep wanting to say, well, these are billionaires who are running things. They got to be smart. And then at times we find out, you know what? Sometimes they're just not. Whether it's a football team or a corporation outside of football, you give somebody the benefit of the doubt because they're running the show and they do stuff where you scratch your head and you say, wait a minute. But you then say, well, you know what? They should know what they're doing. And now Jerry Jones does have a few, Lombardi trophies going back a whole lot of time, but I just don't understand this one, what's going on right now.
Well, it could be that, Dad, or it could be, again, the old phrase, when people show you who they are, or in this case, what they think of you, believe them. The Lions just showed Jared Goff what they think of him. While we might all roll our eyes at it, Jared Goff is going to roll into training camp this year with a lot more sense of security than walking into the last year of his deal, not being sure of his future. For a guy that's probably got some scars based off what happened in Los Angeles, I'm sure mentally that goes a long way outside of just the financial security that he's already secured. And on the other side in Dallas has had plenty of opportunity to get in front of this with Dak Prescott. We have all talked openly about that massive cap hit that's on the books for him next season. We have known what needs to be done, and if Dallas thought they had their quarterback, they would have done it already, because at that position, it's the easiest spot to start your financial planning in the NFL. It's why we see so many teams doing it, and so it continues to reinforce the message, Dad, that I think from the Cowboys side, they are not all the way bought in on Dak enough to make him the quarterback of their future when they very easily could. But, Dad, I want to ask you this, because there's the other part of this. Dak Prescott, you mentioned, from a business standpoint, coming off a season where for a while he spent half the season in the MVP race last year. And you go back and look at Jared Goff's numbers, who were top 10 in a lot of positions. Dak Prescott's were top 5 in most meaningful metrics last year. Dak Prescott was a top 5 quarterback. And so with all that leverage of the no trade clause and they can't tag him and they can't do all this stuff here, Dad, if you're Dak Prescott at this point, what offer do the Cowboys have to put in front of you for you to not want to say, hey, I could risk going through this season and actually hit free agency as a quarterback in this league where we rarely see that happen?
Well, Dak has said, I believe he has said, he doesn't need to be the highest paid quarterback, which would in turn be the highest paid player in the league. So, is he willing to make something that's a little more team friendly? But you're right. You sit there and look at the stats, and for him, it's all been about, we had turnovers the other year with 15 interceptions, only had 9 this year, or maybe 17. I had a ton of interceptions, but not being able to win this team in the postseason. And that just hangs over his head. So, Mike, he can ask for the world. I mean, right? When all his agent has to do is show the stats, this is what people are getting paid on, and Dallas can come back and say, well, we haven't been, to an NFC championship game or a Super Bowl with him at the helm, so, maybe it can't be that much. And then, obviously, you negotiate and you work to a number. But because I guess my thought is, what the hell are you going to do, Dallas? What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Where are you finding the next guy when you keep saying, Jerry, we're going to win right now. We're going to win now. We're putting everything into it right now. But now what he's doing is he's waiting for the leaves to fall. So we went from winning right now to waiting for more leaves to fall to make a clearer picture for him. And my clearer picture and prognostication for them is they've been a 12-win team. That ain't happening this year. That's not happening. I mean, they just haven't done enough. And then if you go into this season with this hanging over your head, that would just be stunning to me.
And see, I actually think they can still be that caliber of team this season. And I think no small part of that is because of what you've put on Dak Prescott. Like Mike McCarthy's offense asked Dak Prescott to go out there and, like when he was with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, make some impressive throws, because you're not going to do a bunch of tough stuff pre-snap. We just saw 35 going on 36-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off a ruptured Achilles get $100 million guaranteed over 2 years. Dak Prescott is 30 years old. And much the same, while you can point to Dak Prescott, yes, a lack of postseason success in Dallas has absolutely been the thing hanging over this entire entire situation. Kirk Cousins got one career postseason win. Like, that clearly was not prohibitive enough for him to not be the belle of the ball this last offseason. So, Dad, if you're Dak Prescott, and this is always the thing that's lying out there, is it's a massive risk in a league where we had the basketball and football debate last week. This is the league where violence governs everything. And that threat of injury is so ever present that it could change the course of your career in a single play. We saw it for Aaron Rodgers last year, and Dak Prescott's a guy, physical player, will take off and run, will put his body in harm's way. And so that's something you have to think about a little bit more. But man, on the other side, if Dak Prescott wants to play hardball and say, all right, message received, I now have the opportunity to do something that very few quarterbacks do on the other side of this year. So I'll play out this final season, I'll take a bunch of money, and then I'll go make a ton more, and you'll have to continue to write me that check even when I'm not on your roster next year. That's pretty tantalizing at this point. But again, we hardly ever see it. And I would not blame Dak Prescott if the Dallas Cowboys came and they gave him the next market-setting offer right above this, and he took it, because that kind of risk is just that, a massive, massive risk. But on the other side of that, if he really wanted to test this, I could understand the incentive. And based on the way Dallas has sent the message to him, that being a driving force or a motivator for him would be totally understandable.
Yeah, this one will be an interesting move. Again, he's 30 years old. So we'll see. I mean, I'm still stunned Dallas hasn't done this to lower his cap number and help them out. But that's just obviously, we keep going around in a circle here, a sign that they just don't think he's the guy long term. So we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out, along with these other quarterbacks, if they are to get deals that we mentioned, Lawrence, Love, and Tua.
Well, we will get to see it play it out and hear the opinion of one of the all-time greats in week 1 of the season, because we got the announcement yesterday at what looked like Fox's version of the Upfronts, Michael Strahan and Tom Brady on stage to announce that Tom Brady is, in fact, after all the speculation, going to make his broadcast debut and is going to do it calling the game of America's team. Listen to how excited Tom Brady was to get out there and call this. Or not. Thought we had the sound, but apparently we do not. Don't. Tom Brady is going to be calling the week 1 matchup, Dad, of the Dallas Cowboys. It's Cowboys-Browns that'll be in the Fox doubleheader window there. He made a couple of barbs at America's team, and so we are going to get to see Tom Brady finally do this. And Tom Brady calling a Dallas Cowboys game is like the center of the Venn diagram that is every advertising executive's dream.
Yeah, CBS doesn't even have a second game then. So that's going to be a lone game. It's the 4:25 game on that Sunday. What I did not know, and this it's probably been out there, but I didn't know that we know Greg Olsen had been the number 1 analyst, and now he's not. Kevin Burkhardt had been the play-by-play with him. Kevin is going to be with Tom Brady. Kevin's staying in that number 1 team, and I don't know if you've heard of. We've yet to see where Olsen is going to end up. I don't imagine he's going to be the number 2 guy there, but I didn't know they were splitting up that booth.
Yeah, no, it's wonder how that went over I saw the Fox sunny getaway retreat for a lot of the upper echelon on-air talent where they were all on the beach in some sunny location, and I wonder if at that point Greg already knew his fate, or if Kevin came over and gave him a little kiss as he was getting ready to betray him and go over with Tom Brady. So congrats to all of them. At some point down the road, I do want to get into, because I think it's fascinating, as Dad, you're dreading your schedule release show with Westwood One, but that's going to come up and be all over ESPN tomorrow as they're going to reveal a lot of that. I love it. It's a holy holiday for the social media departments. One of the reasons that this has taken so long, people have speculated, is because of what we've heard of the NFL's Christmas Day games and the potential rumors of Netflix getting involved as a broadcast partner, which I think is fascinating in terms of what we've seen with the streaming services like Netflix, like Amazon, all getting into the mix, because sports remains the one major driver, live events that people are going to tune in for no matter what. And as all these streaming services are looking to up their subscribers, there's one button they continue to press, and right now it looks like the NFL. Coming up next, though, let's head back to the NBA. We've got the playoffs rolling along. We had the draft lottery the other night. The combine's going on right now. ESPN NBA front office insider Bobby Marks going to break down all of it for us next year on GoJo and Golic. All right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. And with so much going on in the NBA, pumped to talk to our next guest, ESPN NBA front office insider Bobby Marks, joining us from Chicago right now, out there for the draft combine, or as social media would have me believe, Bronny James' pro day. I guess in theory there are other people out there, but Bobby, good morning. And what's the vibe been like out there right now as we head into a draft where a lot of people struggle to sink their teeth into a marquee prospect here? What has been the mood and the conversation around this event so far?
You know, it's interesting in this collective bargaining agreement that was signed last year. One of the mandates was player participation as far as draft prospects coming out, requiring to take the physical, the team interviews, and we have seen full player participation. Now, today we start the 5-on-5 play. I would not expect I would say probably most of the first round prospects to participate, which is kind of the norm. But we've got, yesterday was all shooting drills and testing. And as you mentioned, of course, there is a famous player's son participating, which I'm intrigued to see him play. I really am. Certainly the body of work at USC was not great, based on a lot of different circumstances. He shot the ball extremely well last night. I mean, I know when you're going against air, you can, that's a little bit different than playing in a game here. But yeah, I think it's, there's buzz with that. I think the other thing is that even though there's not a franchise player in this draft, we think a lot of the teams you talk to are like, yeah, I'm comfortable being at 16 and 17. I think I can get a good player compared to maybe where Detroit is at 5, where it's kind of a little bit of the unknown as far as getting an all-star type guy.
Detroit, I mean, worst record in the NBA, and they get the 5th pick. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing how that worked out. Everybody saw the Bronny shooting the threes. Like I said, you're doing it on air, but he's, that's what he's asked to do, and he's making them. I'm sure there were some people surprised to hear, but were you all in the basketball world surprised to hear he was basically 3 inches shorter than what the roster said he was at USC?
No, but I went out there, Mike, to LA last week, and watched him work out. And I didn't, certainly the height, comes into play. The one thing I took away was how much bigger he is in person. He's put on 15 pounds since the end of the season. He's up to 210. I think he came in at. His wingspan is pretty big for a guard. But at the end of the day, what is he? Is he a point guard? He's a small shooting guard? And I think what his calling card is going to have to be kind of like Tony Allen type player, defender, lock up multiple guys here. But yeah, 6'1", I think 6'1.5" without shoes it's small, right? I mean, it's small if you're not running point for your team, which he certainly did not do at USC.
So you've been going through and doing the offseason kind of scouting report and prognostication for a lot of the teams that are now sitting at home watching the postseason like the rest of us. As far as Bronny, how does he fit into what the future for LeBron James looks like for this Los Angeles Lakers team that's going forward into an important offseason?
Yeah, I don't know if I buy into you got to draft him. Lakers have 55, and they also have a first-round pick if New Orleans doesn't take it. I'm not in that belief that you have to draft him to keep LeBron in LA. I just don't. I don't see that coming to fruition. Maybe I'm wrong. Come the end of June, do I think he gets drafted? I think there's probably a better chance that he does than doesn't. I think any time you're picking, whether it be in the second round, it's all about 2 years from now, 3 years from now. The reality is that he's probably going to be in the G League, like most players are when you're picked in the second round or on a 2-way contract. And that's going to be his best development than playing for the Lakers or Phoenix or one of these other teams.
Is the percentage still in your mind the highest that LeBron does the player option and goes back to LA?
Well, he certainly created some buzz last night, didn't he?
Yeah.
We were sitting at the bar last night watching the Oklahoma City game with a bunch of teams, and they had a couple teams come up and say, hey, they got any money to go out and get that guy? And I said, yeah, if he wants to go for the minimum or maybe a sign and trade or trade or something like that. But yeah, he rolled up to Cleveland with Rich Paul and his wife, and I think there's an expectation that we will see him in Chicago sometime today to watch his son, which tips off at 1:00 Eastern. So yeah, I do think there's still the expectation there as far as him going back to LA, but you never know. I mean, it's the unknown as far as my wife said to me this morning. He's made so much money, he can go somewhere for the minimum. I said, yes, I've taught you well on the basics of the CBA.
So, Bobby, I'm wondering, what's the last event that you went to where you strolled in with your own bottle of wine?
Yeah, I don't even do that at home in my backyard. I pour it in the kitchen. So yeah, that was
that. You want to talk about figuring out your place in the narrative universe there, when you can roll in with the $500 bottle of wine courtside. I think you've made it in a different way than the rest of us can comprehend.
At least he wasn't playing, right? Could you imagine if he was inactive for that game and it's under his seat? So yeah, that was something different.
Certainly something different, but again, the brand is very strong for LeBron James, so not altogether surprising. Bobby, as we take the look at what we've talked about with you and everyone who's been reading over on ESPN.com, looking ahead for some of the teams sitting at home now, looking at the teams that have been eliminated from the playoffs so far, who's got the most difficult road to trying to get back there next year that you see?
Well, I mean, Phoenix is the ultimate wild card, right? I mean, just based on, and we wrote about it, really, they're married to that roster with Durant, Beal, and Booker. The only change they were going to have to do is make a coaching change. That's the reality of this business, and they go get Mike Budenholzer. And hopefully, for ownership's sake, they've spent so much money on this roster and they're limited how to add. You're basically hoping they're going to be what the change is. I mean, they still went out and won 49 games last year, but I think Phoenix is certainly challenging. It's funny, Atlanta lost in the play-in and they get the number 1 pick, and man, this is not the year to get the number 1 pick if you're a team that won 39 games here. So it is going to be interesting as far as some of these teams that either lost in the playoffs or are sitting at home waiting to get ready for this draft.
You look at some of the young teams that are doing well in Minnesota, Oklahoma City, even Orlando, even though they got knocked out, a young team doing well. We were talking about this about a week ago. Are we getting past the players trying to form super teams now?
No, I think we are. I think, what Oklahoma City has done is remarkable, right? I mean, they've got 35 draft picks over the next 7 years, including 13 first-round picks, the youngest roster in the NBA, the ability to keep Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and then Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren. You saw it in Orlando with Paolo Banchero, Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. I do think we're getting past the big market super team, 3 guys, and because Mike, it's basically how the rules are set up. The rules really hurt you to add 3 guys making $150, $160 million in salary combined. The inability to add around that player really makes it challenging. So it's drafting, it's developing, it's retaining, and then it's going out and finding those role players to fill out your bench.
And as we've seen, a lot of the rule changes over recent years between what we've seen with the draft lottery odds, certainly the play-in tournament for the playoffs as well, all of it seems to be producing the exact results that Adam Silver and company, I'm sure, we're very excited to see. So more great results on the way, I'm sure, for the rest of the Combine this week. Bobby, we appreciate the time this morning. Enjoy Chicago. Hopefully you get a LeBron James sighting, and hopefully he shares some of the bottle that he's brought with him to this event, too.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bobby. It's so true,
Bobby
Mike.
Marks
I mean, if you're going to bring
Twitter,
some,
by the way,
if you're going to bring some, I mean, bring some for everybody, right?
I mean, you could bring like one of those huge like mags that you see at restaurants right there, but that one's a little tougher to bring in. Like, to Bobby's point, we'd seen LeBron and some other guys walk in with like the bottle of wine as a part of their pregame outfit. Carrying what's essentially a small child's worth of wine would be an interesting choice, unless he went the box wine route like we've all done here. He's a high-class guy, but you could fit a big old bag of wine underneath your arm and feed the entire front row. And now all of a sudden, maybe Cavaliers fans warm up even more to the idea of LeBron James returning one last time. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Our thanks to ESPN NBA front office insider Bobby Marks for joining us, getting us ready for the summer to come for a lot of NBA teams. Dad, we got 2 more games coming up tonight, though. Series shifting back to New York at MSG. The Pacers going up against a Knicks team that might just be running out of gas. I think this is a series that could still go the distance, but let's put it this way. I think the Knicks get one more win at Madison Square Garden. This is too proud and too tough a team for me to doubt their ability to steal one more there. But I think the youth, the pace, all the things that we talked about going into this series with Tom Habistro for the Pacers is going to prove to be too much for the Knicks at this juncture, given the sheer mounting amount of injuries that really hit its death blow when OG Anunoby went off the court.
I just can't see the Knicks continuing that long. I mean, they're just running out of gas. But we'll see. You say they can get one more. That means it's going. If you think the Pacers are going to win, that's going 7 games then. Which, my gosh, Boston should be able to end this one with Cleveland and get it done and get some rest. And the thing the Knicks would love the most if they were to win, they're not going to get is rest. So I still like the Pacers and that to come back. I just think the Knicks eventually run out of gas. And then obviously we have the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, which amazing enough, a home team has not won a game in that series, which is just we always say a series doesn't start until the road team wins. Well, that series started in game 1 then, and now we're sitting at 2-2. And it's been pretty impressive.
I think we can also say the alternative is true. The series doesn't start until someone wins at home. And so Denver, I think, gets the series started officially tonight. I think the Nuggets keep it rolling. The light went back on for them. You ticked off Jokic enough. You made the God King bleed. And now they had to remind everybody that, yeah, we still know what time it is. We still have the best player on planet Earth. I'm sorry. I was one of the people that doubted them like an idiot. And I am going back to my ways. I am putting the Denver Nuggets off to the side and saying, all right, after the first real turbulence they've had in the last 2 years in the postseason, they weathered that storm, and now they are back on track looking like a team that's absolutely capable of making a return trip to the NBA Finals. So again, those will be popping off tonight. We'll have plenty on that as we come up tomorrow. But, Dad, I wanted to get back to something that we mentioned before Bobby came on with us. Fascinated by Netflix inserting itself into this pro sports market here. Now, we've got the NFL schedule released tomorrow, and like we said, there seems to have been a delay that was largely centered, or at least it was rumored to be, reported by Puck's John Oren, citing anonymous sources saying that part of this is because Netflix has gotten into the bidding war for the Christmas Day games and appears to be the likely winner right now. Now, no deal is in place yet, according to these reports, but Dad, even the mere idea where years ago we never would have thought this is possible. Netflix is where you went for shows, comedy specials, all this stuff. But now as they've added Monday Night Raw from the WWE, now that we've seen Goff on there, we're going to see the Tyson and Fury fight, or the Tyson and Paul fight on here as well. You now all of a sudden are seeing Netflix have the same realization that Amazon did with Prime getting into the Thursday night bidding here. What do you think fans are going to feel about this? Is just this kind of something we've resigned ourselves to as a watching public, that while it's going to continue to inconvenience people, this is the way the world's going?
Yeah. I think, we've had the cable cutters, for years that have been going on. But then I think people, it got streaming crazy, right? And now people are trying to corral, okay, what streaming services should I belong to? And then you get places that do the bundle, as well. So I think it's just making people adjust again. Okay, if I cut cable and I went to streaming, oh my God, now look at my bill. I got 20 different streaming services going out there. I need to cull that down to the things that I want. And things that people want are live sports. You feel you're getting great value, I think, out of live sports. So obviously Amazon went that way, and Netflix is going that way. You mentioned the boxing. They've done, the Netflix Slam, a tennis matchup. They've done the Netflix Cup, which is going to be a golf matchup. So they're seeing that carries the day. Live sports carry the day. You may not want to see shows or thing on a certain network, but when it comes to live games, that's what you want to see. And the beneficiary of it, especially, in this country, is football. Football, I mean, they can just charge an arm and a leg, but all these services know. I mean, look what happened when Peacock had the playoff game. Subscriptions went up. I mean, Amazon, the ratings have been really good. You look at Netflix already for them, they've had 3 consecutive quarters of subscriber growth. So they're getting the growth, and now they're going to add live sports to it. You know you're going to pay a ton of money, but you know you're going to get subscribers. It's the one thing that always wins, live sports. And then if it's NFL as the live sport, I mean, it's almost a lock.
Yeah, if you want to watch every NFL game, you need quite a few subscriptions now, dude. So Netflix is going to be one of 4 streamers that will exclusively carry at least one game next season. So you're going to need Peacock, you're going to need ESPN Plus, and then you're going to need Amazon now.
It's been incredibly annoying as a viewer because the hardest thing to do then is be able to switch channels at all when things are going on.
Yes.
Because now you're going from one platform to another, and it makes it really clunky and cumbersome. Like, in addition to the financial part of it, and Dad, you mentioned like Netflix, that number is also skewed by the fact that they finally did the crackdown on all of us sharing passwords. I had to finally get off your guys' Netflix account, which really ticked me off.
Thank God.
Fierce.
My
So
mom
now
just
they're
texted me
getting
for my
the bumper.
Apple password right now. I'm like, dude.
Oh, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to hear it from Dad. I have given you passwords to plenty of, and you know what? This used to be the bargain. In every family, you had a guy, right? You had a person who had one of the streaming platforms, and you all shared the password. And that was kind of the unspoken bond in this world where now, you're right, Dad, we all thought, oh man, cutting the cord on cable. I'm paying too much money for all these channels that I don't watch, and this is dumb. And now, what are we doing? Paying a bunch of money for a service that you won't use 99% of. Like, you're going to go there and you're going to watch the 1 or 2 things that you paid for on that service, and you're going to pay for a bunch of stuff. Like, we read the room completely wrong on the way that we sold this idea of cord cutting back in the day. And most people, I think, would run back into the sweet embrace of cable. Obviously, customer service has always been a place where they have failed miserably. Dad, you are I'd probably say, patient zero of hating dealing with cable companies. But now having to juggle all this doesn't feel demonstrably better.
But I'll say this, much like my son-in-law, your sister's husband, Ben, who eats an incredible amount. We were just at an all-you-can-eat buffet. We were at an all-you-can-eat buffet where we win because he well exceeds what the price is for the all-you-can-eat. I feel I'm that for Netflix. I consume so much Netflix, I can't lose here, right? The money I pay for the subscription there and the amount of content I get, which now will include NFL, I'm winning. I'm cool. Netflix is the streaming service I use most, so I'm good with it.
You can wait until December, though, with Netflix, if you're interested in watching the NFL games.
That's really how they're getting you in all of this, though, is they want you to do the free week subscription, and then, like most of us do, forget. And now all of a sudden it's 3 months later, and you look at your credit card statement, and you've got that $8 a month or whatever it's going to cost now if you buy the upgraded version of that, and you're like, oh man, I need to go and change it, but then they make it really hard to cancel, and on we go, and that's the dance, and it sucks. Like, all of this is a net negative for the viewer. Like, that is abundantly clear, but they've got us because we're addicts, especially when it comes to the NFL. We have gone through far worse as NFL fans in terms of what we have tolerated and still come back to the well for watching this sport.
Here's what I can't wait for is what Netflix is paying. I mean, we saw what Amazon pays. And they get a weekly game, though, I get. But this is 2 games, and you know that they're going to be in the hunt for more games. This isn't a one-time thing for Netflix. So I can't wait to hear the amount they're going to be paying the NFL. The owners just keep smiling and smiling in the NFL because just more and more money gets put in their pockets.
Thankfully, that pot also goes to the players, which gives me some solace if their schedule is going to keep getting jacked with here. The challenge I would lay out to Netflix is you've got a lot of programming here. Paramount Plus changed the game with the commercials this last season. Those were the best. I almost bought Paramount Plus because the advertisements were that good. So Netflix, you just finished up the great comedy special week out here. Ball's in your court if this actually happens here. The gauntlet's been thrown down. You can either choose to compete or run scared. The choice is yours. All right, guys, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories. Send you into the rest of the day. As always, download, subscribe, rate, and review this show. Leave it a 5-star rating. And check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern when you can. Noon to 1 p.m. Eastern for the best of GoJo and Golic on the radio wherever you hear VSiN. And if you miss any of that there or our great guests, thank you to Charlotte Wilder, our friend for Wilder Wednesday on a Tuesday, the co-host of Oddball with Amin Al Hassan, and ESPN NBA front office insider Bobby Marks for joining us today to break down the NBA's combine, offseason, and more. If you missed them, you can get it wherever you get your podcasts or available right here as soon as we get done on YouTube. And guys, let's get to this. We talked a lot about the news tonight. The WNBA season's kicking off. I just ordered because they are absolute heat. The Golden State Valkyries, the expansion franchise that just launched. Nice purple crew neck that is going to be a welcome addition to the closet. Can't wait for that. But in the midst of all this news surrounding women's basketball, the debut of Caitlin Clark tonight, we got some news on the college front as Caitlin Clark's former coach at Iowa, Lisa Bluder, announced her retirement yesterday to the shock of many there. I saw the reaction from Kate Martin out with the Las Vegas Aces, found out during a press conference she was on there. Lisa Bluder retires, assistant coach Jan Jensen takes over. And Dad, I'm sure there was part of Lisa Bluder that enjoyed everything that went on with Caitlin Clark for the last few years and was not in any rush to find out what life after Caitlin was going to be like around
Well,
there.
that was my fault. First and foremost, listen, she's 63, the winningest women's basketball coach in Big Ten history, 40 seasons as a coach, 24 at Iowa. She started at St. Ambrose for 6 years, Drake for 10 seasons before going to Iowa. So you got to give her all the love that she deserves. But then you do ask that question. Is it ever going to get this good again? Back-to-back national championship appearances. You have one of the greatest college basketball players of all time under your wing for some years there, and now she's gone. So are you like, well, then maybe this is a good time to kind of slide on out the door? Either way, listen, it's been an incredible career for her. So congrats to her.
She hit him with the SpongeBob.
Yeah,
I'm a head out.
And you know what?
See ya.
To Dad's point, and we had our friend Lucy Roden from the Dan Le Batard show on here, and she talked about the way that, you know, Lisa had built up this program even before Caitlin Clark had got there and some of the success they had prior to that. And so certainly don't want to make it seem like she's ducking smoke, but at the same time, we would all kind of understand, Lisa. Enjoy retirement. You have earned it. It'll be exciting to see what that Hawkeye program continues to do. I would ask everyone around women's basketball. I saw there was that cool documentary that came out a while back that involved a lot of Caitlin Clark action in there. We can stop talking about Caitlin Clark now having been committed to Notre Dame. I don't need to hear about that ever again in my entire life. I'm done with it. These personal attacks on me need to be over with because it is not good for my already very strained mental health. So let this be the last time that is talked about publicly. Caitlin, we're big fans, but my God, you don't have to keep hurting me like this. Emerson, let's make everyone a lot happier and talk about something near and dear to your heart. Hot dogs raining down from the sky.
Oh, yeah. Can we interest you in a video of hot dogs falling from the sky into the arms of eager fans? Welcome to Seattle, everybody, where their in-game promotion now, GoJo. Hot dogs with parachutes falling down into the arms and the mouths of hungry, glizzy-guzzling fans below. Is this heaven? No. It's Seattle, baby. It's Seattle. Booking my one-way ticket to Seattle right now. This has to be a top 3 in-game promotion of all time in any sport in mankind history. Yay or nay?
Best I've ever seen. Dad, while it gives me deep Hunger Games vibes and it feels very dystopian where this could be heading, I'm glad they've used this technology and idea for good. Hot dogs raining down from the sky, equal opportunity for everyone there. Because sometimes when you go to games and you get either the cannons that shoot a hot dog or a t-shirt, it kind of caters to certain areas of the stadium, and there's a lot of people that get excluded from that. And so at least with these hot dogs, it feels like based on the wind of the day, you might have an opportunity no matter where you're sitting in the stands to absolutely mainline some glizzies.
So I'm wondering for you guys, Emerson, I'll start with you. If you're at a baseball game and the hot dogs are coming out of the sky down into the stands, just like a home run baseball would.
I know where you're going. Finish.
Okay. What are you fighting for harder, the home run baseball or the foul ball, baseball, whatever, or the glizzy falling from the sky?
I don't care about baseballs. I can go down to Dick's Sporting Goods on Boylston and buy a baseball. It depends on who hits it. But a glizzy, I'm pushing children out of the way. I'm pushing families, mothers, fathers. I don't care who it is. I will lay out and launch my meaty body down 20 rows if it means I'm going to catch one of these parachuting glizzies. I'm telling you right now, there's nothing better than a hot dog at the ballpark, a solid throat missile at the ballpark. And if it's free, and you could save me $6, done. I need to know if there's condiments that come down with it that are like attached.
Right.
Maybe the hot dog has a backpack on and it's filled with mustard, relish, ketchup, whatever, chili, cheese, onions.
See, I don't think you need that for stadium dogs like that, Dad. I remember core memory for me as a kid going to Notre Dame Stadium. The cheerleaders would come out and they would throw the stadium hot dogs into the stands, and I caught one and just downed it with no condiment. A good hot dog on a cold day. And in the Pacific Northwest, you can get a little bit of a cooler afternoon by the water there. I think it's great even without the condiments given, because this to me is more about the competition. When things start getting thrown into the crowd, this is about your willingness to go out and compete.
Yeah. I don't ever fight for the T-shirts. I don't fight for any of it. I would fight for a hot dog. And there's nothing wrong with raw dogging a glizzy, Gojo. That's totally fine.
No.
Sometimes you just need a nice little snack.
You fight for a hot dog. It's a free hot dog. You eat it without condiments. I have no problem with that at all. None at all. I'm good with that. I'm fighting hard for one of those. Shout out to our buddy Dallas Braden, who was in the booth for the A's, having the right energy and seeing a hot dog get caught outside the booth and spending some time reeling that one in to get right. That is good, clean living, and that's why Dallas is a legend. Guys, let's get to the third here. Viral hammock guy, Emerson, please elaborate.
Yeah, on today's episode, I thought I've seen it all. We have a man arguing with a bus driver because he is hanging out in a hammock on a public bus. I don't know, it's one of those viral moments. You may look at it and say, is this staged or not? But instead of you're wasting your time trying to figure that out. Hammock guy, the question is he doing anything really wrong here? Because he kind of makes a point. I'm just gonna say it, he makes a good point. He says, where is the sign that says no hammocks on the bus? There isn't one.
I mean, we just saw the video of that lady trying to sleep in the overhead bin on an airplane. We've seen people do all sorts of depraved stuff. Anyone that's ever been on a New York subway, this is really fighting hard to even register on the Richter scale. So, Dad, I think this person found a loophole. I think Big Bus is frustrated that they can't just control everything that goes on here, and I have to award him points for this. There's no other way.
So I'm of the ilk. First off, how long did it take? You know, that had to be strapped up. Okay? I mean, that had to take a little bit of time if you see the connections on both sides to do it. Now, there are some things I don't know. How long is he riding on the bus? Is he truly just going to a stop? Is he just staying on it all day and just being there all day? Because at some point, if you're the bus driver, you just got to say, all right, this is ridiculous to fight it. Dude ain't getting out of it right now, so ain't hurting anybody. So I'm just gonna continue to drive the bus. But I would like to know some other factors in this.
Yeah, that's a good question. So along the Esplanade where I walk my dogs a lot, there are who I would consider to be professional hammock hangers. Like these people, I've seen them break it out of a bag, and then it's just you find two trees, strap, snuggle, strap, snuggle, and a lot of times there's more than one person in one of those. And that thing starts rocking, and you just keep walking.
Yeah.
See, I'm wondering when the rest of the Park Olympics kind of people are going to make their way into this, because the hammock person's one thing. What about those people that put it between two trees and do the little tightrope walk there? You do that on a bus, and now all of a sudden you're cooking with gas. The people from the circus come calling. You've changed your life. Yeah. You've gotten chosen, and now your kids don't have to worry about paying for college. It can all happen if you just have the courage to defy Big Bus. Please, as a note of parliamentary procedure, respect bus drivers. Don't make life difficult.
Amen.
Don't be a jerk on our behalf. We didn't tell you to do that. We did tell you to download, subscribe, rate, review this show. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.